The next thing I think it's important for people to understand is that we do not treat ourselves for mental illness the way we should. These statistics show you nearly 60% of adults with a mental illness did not receive mental health services in the past year. So let's just sit with that for a minute. And if a conversation about mental illness is new to you, let's make it more personal. I have hypertension. I don't know if I have any hypertension sisters and brothers in the room. Okay. There are people that have diabetes. There are people that have chronic heart failure. Imagine your life or your loved one's life if they did not receive treatment for their physical ailment in a year's time. I guarantee you, if I hadn't seen my physician, if I didn't take my medicine, do the other things that I do to self-manage my hypertension for a year, I would not be standing here in front of you today. Yet, when it comes to mental health, mental illness, people don't go. That is something we absolutely have to change. One of the things that I am on a crusade about is to level the playing field when it comes to mental health and physical health. We don't stigmatize people. You don't stigmatize me because I have hypertension. So why would you stigmatize me if I had schizophrenia or bipolar disorder? We absolutely have to start changing the conversation. Nearly 50% of youth aged 8 to 15 didn't receive mental health services in the previous year. So that should be even more alarming, because we know the earlier that you can catch an illness of any kind, the earlier you can diagnose it, the more time you have to treat it, and the better off you will be. And so when our young people, only 50% of them are receiving treatment, that really should alarm us. I also find it very interesting to look at it from a race and ethnicity perspective. African Americans and Hispanic Americans, Black and brown folks use mental health services at about half the rate of whites in the past year, and Asian Americans at about a third the rate. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into stigma, but as we look at mental illness, we absolutely have to look at treatment. And let me say one other thing on this. When we even when we control for other factors that may impact around race and ethnicity, when we control for income, when we control for access, when we control for education, all of those things being equal, I am going to go half as likely as my white woman counterpart that has the same background as I do. There's something wrong with that picture, and we absolutely have to fix that. Can't talk about an illness without understanding the consequences of it and things that are connected to it. And so this slide just really quickly looks at some of these. Co-occurring disorder, which Dr. Jones talked about. A co-occurring disorder is when you have both a mental illness and a substance use disorder at the same time. And 51% of people that have a substance use disorder have a mental illness as well. And it's often hand in hand. 26% of the sheltered homeless in Michigan have mental illness as well. So when you think about homeless people, you think about mentally ill, those often go hand in hand. Yet it's important for us not to dismiss them. And I encourage people to consider, as you see people on the streets, as you are engaging them. I know many of you are in ministry, and so I know that you already have an ear for this kind of thing, but not all of us are. Just think about the likes of a Nathaniel Ayers. Anybody remember that name? Nathaniel Ayers, Juilliard-trained cellist, who was amazing. The movie The Soloist was about his very real life, expertly played by Jamie Foxx. Thank you. He was clearly mentally ill. He had schizophrenia and psychosis, but he was also a genius. And he could not be dismissed. And I want people to realize that we may be walking by geniuses, and we need to consider that. And I don't have to go down the ministerial path about who we might be walking by. You all already understand that part. I have a lot of soapboxes. Be prepared for that. Well, clearly, we're talking about incarceration, and we'll share some of those statistics later. But it is clear that when we in this state close the mental health hospitals, we understand that the community mental health system, of which I am part, was not yet fully developed, and many of those people became homeless. Many of those people are now incarcerated or were incarcerated, and we really have to change the tide of that as well. We do know that people that are working in the prison system, the jail system, I understand that they are doing what they can with what they have to work with in treating those people who have mental illness. But clearly, they are not doing all that needs to be done. No judgment on what they're doing, because I don't work there, I don't know. But we do know that they're not doing all that needs to be done for this population. Suicide. 90% of suicides have an underlying mental illness condition. 90%, 9 out of 10. Chances are you do not take your life if there's not an underlying mental illness, and it's usually major depression.